Therefore they said to him, "What sign will you perform then, that we may see it and believe you? What work will you do?" "Our fathers ate the manna in the desert, as it is written, 'He gave them bread from heaven to eat.'" Then Jesus said to them, "Most assuredly I say to you, Moses did not give you the bread from heaven, but my Father gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is he who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world." Then they said to him, "Lord, give us this bread always." And Jesus said to them, "I am the bread of life. He who comes to me shall never hunger, and he who believes in me shall never thirst. All that the Father gives me will come to me, and the one who comes to me I will by no means cast out. For I have not come down from heaven to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. This is the will of the Father who sent me, that of all he has given me I should lose nothing, but should raise it up at the last day. And this is the will of him who sent me, that everyone who sees the Son and believes in him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. I am the bread which came down from heaven. Most assuredly I say to you, he who believes in me has everlasting life. I am the bread of life. Your fathers ate the manna in the wilderness and are dead. This is the bread which comes down from heaven, that one may eat of it and not die. Just stay there. Don't open your eyes and just notice if you were able to be in that space. Notice what it's like to be there. What are the physical symptoms? What does it feel like when you're there? And notice how it feels in your head when you're in that space. Notice what it feels like in your legs when you're in that space. And notice that sustained attention on those sensations. Probably one of the ways you naturally stay in that state. Okay, you guys, you can open your eyes. So what I've got prepared tonight's about half a class. And it's just, I just couldn't, some of it is because I'm reading this book, this new book, The Master and His Emissary. And it's written by a cognitive scientist. And it's really dense. And I, first I thought, this is the kind of book I have to read more than once if I'm going to understand it. So first I listened to it on Kindle, and then waited as it arrived in the mail, and then now I'm reading it. And I'm skipping ahead in different sections. But he goes to great lengths to say everything you learned about the right brain, left brain division is wrong. So, okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. He said it's all sort of been debunked. Then he said, but there actually are these really serious divisions and sort of differences between right and left brain, but you don't know what they are because they're not what you've been taught. So I learned a lot about right and left brain. Well, I don't know how much I learned. I can remember about 2 things. And that turned out to work in my benefit because nothing I learned was wrong. It just turns out if I'd really paid attention, I'd have a lot of problems. But I didn't pay attention, so it's not so bad. But but here's the thing. As I'm reading this book, it's a pretty heavy book. It's dense, but as I'm reading it, I'm just hearing Christian spirituality. I'm hearing the scriptures. It riddled throughout his whole analysis of human consciousness and why it is the way it is, and what is supreme over, just think of it this way. He's showing why the right brain, they thought the left brain was sort of the main dominant hemisphere, and the right brain was subservient to it. And now all the latest research, his whole life's work, by the way, as a cognitive scientist, is showing that the right brain is absolutely dominant, and the left brain serves it, and sometimes it won't because it's stubborn. And that it's not, I don't know enough to explain how or why. If you took a Myers-Briggs test or something, if you come out not an intuitive person, I don't know enough to explain why, but take it as fact that it is true that you are still right brain dominant, because all of human beings are, most other mammals are too. They're all right brain dominant. Somehow you'll still come in as a not intuitive in the Myers-Briggs test, but even within that schema, it's the right brain that has dominancy over the left. In all the new research, it's really neat. So that now they're saying that's why the book is called The Master and His Emissary. And I think, I haven't read the whole book, but I know this guy's thinking. I know he's a philosopher also, and also a bit of a mystic. Also, or at least interested in mysticism. So, but what's he trying to say? His main message is this, which we kind of already know, but I think our own group, little group of contemplatives, must be less addicted to the left brain. So I'm kind of using it as a segue to talk about a bunch of different things. So he's saying the division between left and right brain is such and such, and the right brain has dominance in this way. And I'm hearing all of the way in which Christianity levels out the value of things being matched perfectly by what he's saying this cognitive science reveals. So it's beautiful, beautiful. So there's a book floating around in here, The Degrees of Knowledge. I don't know if anyone's tried to read it. It's above everyone's head. I think I read it 4 times, and I don't get most of it. It's all kinds of human knowledge that exist mapped out in a Christian schema of from lowest to highest order intelligence. What came last? What is the highest order of intelligence in that schema? Revelation is mystical experiences. And the highest thing you could think of that would involve discursive reasoning, philosophy. So all kinds, mathematics, anything, any kind of human, to this date, what we've discovered, what we've come up with, all human knowledge sort of schemed out in this Christian way, in the way that Christianity values things, and it's dovetailing, perfectly with how this book is saying it's laid out in the brain. And you know what that means? It means that that mystics, contemplatives, meditators have just spent enough time relaxing enough their brain to let it operate the way it naturally operates. You have to think of it that way. You're not acquiring something necessarily. You're just if you stop trying to be intellectual, or if you stop trying to be, she's not here. If you stop trying to be professional, right? If you stop trying to be cool or whatever geeky, I don't know. You name the thing you align to, and all your friends dress the same, and you all look the same. Whatever that is, when you stop all of that, when you just put away those identities and burn them, which is, why our Buddhist friend cut his one pant leg short for 3 years. He was raised so wealthy. He wore that really expensive clothing. And he played polo as a kid, he just was raised in a universe I don't know anything about. And everyone he knows was the same. And there was an entire consciousness, a way that they held themselves in being. And they all looked the same, and they all acted the same, and they dressed the same, and they had the same interests. And that right there is how we get our brains trained to not be natural. To not be natural. So that's why, my daughter's not here tonight, but she's getting straight A's, but she's struggling with school. Because she has this thing, she has this state of consciousness that is superior to the place they want her to be all day as they train her to what they call thinking. And it is thinking, but it's just thinking with the left brain only, almost all the time. And she can do it. It's not, and who cares if she couldn't? But she can do it, which is great. So she can get A's. But she also feels like she's becoming some kind of trained monkey. Like they're killing her. It's killing her soul to do it, because it's all left brain, and it's sick. And ultimately, I want to say, this guy and his philosophy and his cognitive science psychologist, he's a scholar. So he's just got a lot of things going on, and what he's saying ultimately is that our culture is extremely sick, and that we have trained ourselves to be in a state of mind that is absolutely unnatural and that goes against the way the brain actually naturally works. And we kind of already know that, we know that. I know in high school, I mean, man, even in middle school, I looked around and I said, something is very wrong. But I just, I didn't have the horsepower, the exposure to information to see what it was. I felt like something is so wrong here. What is it that is so wrong? This is killing everyone. And I just could tell it's killing people, but how is it killing them? Well, and there's a million reasons and a million ways. But the point is, so then if I say, like I used to read books and I'd kind of put my smart hat on, and and I'd get way in my left brain, and I'd I can really assess this, and I'd be taking notes, and it's like now I see that as dangerous, because I know that if I read the entire book with my right brain, I will have a greater understanding at the end of that, but I'll have less specifics to tell you. That's what I know. I'll know more about it, but I'll have less specifics. Now, this is a very serious book, so it's not like right brain does this, left brain does this. They work as one whole cohesive system, and there's a right, left, right thing that I thought everyone, I don't know if this is interesting. I hope this is the class. That's what you get. This is Christian mysticism right here. There's this really interesting thing. It's right, left, right all the time. The right brain absorbs all the information. Then it gives it to the left brain to analyze close details about, okay? And then once it's analyzed the details of, the left brain gives it back to the right brain to understand cohesive meaning. This is kind of how it works. It's right, left, right. This is the thing. Okay, so I'm reading through, and I'm saying, oh my gosh, no wonder Christian mysticism emphasizes apophaticism. No wonder Jesus said, be passers-by. Like everything he's saying, it's about, we know it's more, but it's about psychological transformation. And it wouldn't work if it didn't map how people actually are, right? That's why we know sort of cult systems can get a grip, but they can't really change people because the person who started it, they don't know the way. So when a system takes and works, when it works on people, when it can produce saints consistently, because saints are at the highest, they're just at the highest level of cognition that a human being can attain. That's all it is. They just get to the place that all of humanity is supposed to be. That's what a saint is. It's what your body is designed to do and be. It's made for this. And so if a system is started by someone who knows what they're doing, it can do that to someone. It can take someone from 0 to 100, I guess, union. And it can do that because the saint was there. The person who started it was in that place and understood reality. They understood the human being, what's the disorder, what's wrong, and how to fix it. That's why bona fide systems work. They work because the person found the end goal. They found sort of the place to which all of us are called, and they could see it clearly enough and teach it clearly enough and well enough that it worked on multiple personality types across generations. That's what an authentic religion is. An inauthentic religion is started by someone either with nefarious ends or just who has not completed the journey. So they just can't. They can't free people because they themselves were not free. And the system that they invented and created isn't sufficient to free that person. And it isn't sufficient to free multiple people, multiple personality types across generations. That's what marks an authentic tradition from an inauthentic tradition. That's kind of that's what it is. And it only comes down to that. And then you can have a tradition that's authentic, and then you can have left brain dominant people running it and putting up roadblocks for everyone all the time in coming to it. Even though they know the way, even though you can find the way in their literature, even though you can go find a monk or a nun or possibly a clergy that has the way, that is the way, which we do see all the time, even though they have it, they can still have a systemic sort of dominance. They can put their smart hat on, which I think is really common in Catholicism. One of the problems, I would say, is they even though they know better, and even though all their saints transcend it, and even though knowledge and the abundance of knowledge, for knowledge's sake itself, is considered a sin, you still find tons of people within the Catholic tradition very, very proud of their intellectual tradition, their intellectual heritage, and overly intellectualizing everything, and staying in the left brain, which is incapable of union with God. It's incapable of it, because it's details, it's parts, it's this, and this. It doesn't see the big picture. And we know that Christian enlightenment is love for all things, right? So forgiveness for everything, right? Forgiveness for the world, forgiveness for God making the world the way the world is, forgiveness for the sinful people in the world. This movement towards love, which if the mind participates in that love, it becomes a broader and broader state of consciousness that is more diffuse, that is less self-centered, right? It is localized, it is happening here, but this thing that is happening here is happening, it's connecting to and reaching out to everything. And that's the Christian end. The end of Christianity is love. And it's love for, this would make my daughter mad. She's hard to please. She's a tough one, man. I give her all the best Christian literature. She still finds these good things to be upset about. But as the Russian book says, which my daughter wants to punch, even the reptiles, even the bugs, even the demons, she says, of course, and she gets all upset, like, how could anyone even say even? I agree. The point is, though, that as this love grows, it grows for everything. Everything. The beasts, they call them the beasts, all of the animals, all of the plants, all of the stones, the demons in hell, everything is taken up in this profound love. And as the Russian book says, to the point where to hear of the harm that is being enacted on even the worst or the beastly of these animals causes profound sorrow. Right? So this is where we're going. We're going to love. That's where we're going. There's no other way. Jesus didn't care if you had visions. He doesn't care. That's not required in Christian spirituality. That isn't required. What is required is profound love. Profound love is the end. Okay, so the right brain, left brain split in this book is just what I thought, so I didn't have to throw much away because I only knew two things. All the details are wrong. If you know the details, I don't know them. Like which ones are linguistic and which ones are not linguistic, it's all wrong. It's all been shattered, but I didn't know enough to have my paradigm shattered, thank goodness. So I'm just learning it for the first time. It's great. But then listen. So what if you have, okay, so, but what he's saying is you're mentally ill if you're in your left brain. The left brain, by the way, fights the right brain organically, but the right brain is the one that has the ability to cause the left brain to stop. It's built in, whereas the left brain does not have the ability built in to cause the right brain to stop. There is a biological preference for the right brain over the left, although it's a cohesive unit and it's all done together. But it's the right brain that is dominant. So then you could see how if you walk around in your left brain analyzing, taking things apart, maybe on your phone, you're in death. The emissary is running the show and the master is in the background. So then think about the cloud of unknowing. Think about how often we're told to stop carrying our thinking around with us, to stop carrying our knowledge around with us. I was going to ask, if I say I'm going to read the Bread of Life Discourse, do you go, yes, I know, the Bread of Life Discourse. If that's what you do, you're living in your left brain and killing it dead. I know some of you can, I know all of you can, but do you? Do you come to it when you read it absolutely empty, blank, with no thoughts whatsoever of what you know about it? Or do you carry knowledge in with you as you read it? Because if you do the knowledge as you read it, you're not learning. You're not experiencing it at all. But it's not the scripture. It's everything. It's life. This is what we're saying is life. Do you come to things knowing what you know about them and carrying that knowledge around? Do you know I can't recall any knowledge I have until the very moment when it's needed? Then it drops in. I don't even know the person's name, frankly, half the time. I wish that came more when it is needed. But I'm not bragging. It just hours and hours, years of in that state of consciousness, practicing it. You just stop walking around with knowledge in your head. So what do you think of when you wake up? I don't think anything. I have subtle grunts, maybe, I have very, very subtle things, but it's because I realized that a long time ago, it was harder to get into deep meditation if I let myself think first. So, it used to be so strong, I had to say a prayer over and over while I was showering, brushing my teeth, over and over and over. Just please don't let a thought about my day come in, because then I'll start running on my day. Please don't let that happen. And I would just say these prayers over and over, but now I don't have to say any prayers. I just don't have any thoughts getting in the way when I wake up. But that's also walking around all the time, and it's if I'm working with someone, if I'm a spiritual director to somebody, it's entirely dependent on their questions. I know lots. I have no idea what I know till you ask. Then things come in to be used. That's the proper way for Christianity. And, I told the monk, he's dead now, but this was a few years back. I said, I'm getting worse, man. It runs in the family. We're kind of airheaded. At least my mom's side is. I got my mom's side of the brain. So I'm already airheaded, and I said, and I'm getting way worse. And he said, that's because your mind is on the right things. That's what he said. He said, your attention is where it should be. That's why that's happening. Because where is your attention? Is it on... that's a green piece of grass, and this is that's the kind of tree. It's a deciduous. If you're doing that, you're miserable, is what I'm trying to say. You're unhappy. If that's where you're walking around, you're miserable, because the right brain is responsible for every new insight you will ever have. It's all new insight comes from the right brain. They work together, but the right brain is the one. So you can't experience that tree. It can't be new to you. You can't experience that color. Daniel's saying he likes color. Me too. I don't mind that purple Japanese maple out there, man. Dude, I'll sit into that. There's a time when you're in the shade, but the tops of the leaves are getting hit by the sun and they light up like lamps. So you're looking at it from this shady sort of place, dimly lit. The leaves themselves are being touched by the sun on the top of them. You're looking at the bottom and they glow. They're just glowing. They're like lamps, all these gorgeous lamps. That right there is all you need. If you're in the right state of if you're doing lectio visio. If it's lectio visio, divine seeing, lectio divina, divine reading of Scripture, if you're doing it in the Spirit, in the power, if you're not in your left brain analyzing, judging, taking parts, if you're doing that, if you're in a contemplative state of consciousness, an altered state of consciousness, if you're halfway into meditation, however you want to word all that, if you're doing that, you can sit below those leaves. It's enough. The beauty is enough. And then, there's never one thing, so then the breeze is just subtly blowing them, and then they're moving in these weird swirly ways, and then you're swirling and you're participating in this, and this is what it's like to be in heaven. And you're just starting to be in heaven now before you go, because you're available to that experience. So, or you could be walking around, in this, in this servant side of the brain. That should be serving you, not running you. But as it shows in all these studies, they're really interesting studies, the weirdest basic things they do that prove things. It's so crazy. But the left brain tries to wrest control from the right brain. It wants to narrate your life and it wants to run your life. And it's deadly. It's just deadly. And so that's why Christian mysticism has the cloud of unknowing built into it, where you abandon your knowledge and you stop taking pride in being knowledgeable. And some of you may be on the path a long time and this may land that you're still doing that. Stop it. Listen, it's killing you. Stop taking pride in things that are killing you, that the world will give you credit for. The world that's currently going straight to hell? The world where all the experts that know what they're doing are just utter freaking buffoons? And we're just at each other's throats and it's all falling apart. Those people that will go, yes, you are quite intelligent, aren't you? Oh, she's very smart. Oh, how neat. Those people they don't know the way. If we leave the world to them, we will destroy it. They don't know the way. And I don't know the way either, but all of us together in the right state of mind do know the way. Because the way is life. The way is life. To love life. My daughter, she wanted to be a counselor for the school. She said within less than 1 minute of the interview, she said, I knew they don't want me. Why? Well, because they want someone who's going to represent, Ivy League, prep school. We're so great. We're going to get your kids to super high-end colleges. And she thought that a Catholic school would want someone there that represented, I love people a lot, and I really love animals, and I just love Jesus, and I love love. And then, they're like, you can see how that lands in the world. It just lands like a lead freaking balloon, They don't care. They couldn't wait to get rid of her in the interview. It really broke her heart because she thought she was in a Christian school where the fact that she spends an hour and a half a day in prayer and is traversing the stages would matter to them. But they're just in that, we're producing the very best intellects in the country, going to the very best schools, that whole weird thing they're doing that. And, and anywhere else in the world you say that and they think you're the freak when you leave, But in here, in true Christian spirituality, where the problems are. Whoever got happier spending more time online? It doesn't work. More information, I'm glad to have my supercomputers. Don't get me wrong, I love it. I'm not against any of it. I want it. When I want it. When I need to know something. But not when it's demanding my attention 24/7 and I'm locked in that kind of thinking. It's death. Okay, so then, beginner's mind in Zen, Lectio Divina in Christianity, the cloud of unknowing. Can you let go of what you know? And will you? And will you let go of what you are? Whatever identity the world has given you, the sinful identity the world has given you, it is death. It is a diminished form of who and what you are. You're so just you, just hanging out. I know a woman who maybe sometimes struggles with self-esteem, who I think spends a good portion of her time truly seeing people and animals. The world just doesn't care about that much, Even it's weird. But Jesus cares about that. Because that's what heaven is. That's all heaven is. Just seeing other people and seeing beauty when you see them. Seeing their character and loving that and thinking, my gosh, that's so amazing. That's the point of life. If you go to heaven, you will have to go from where you are to there, and there's no other way into heaven. Heaven is not it's like you can get a back door or something. To be in heaven is to be in a state where you're profoundly appreciating everything. That's what heaven is. So here's what I know. I know a lot of you guys are spending a couple, 2-3 hours a day in meditation, and that's having permanent effects on how your brain works, and you're becoming more of a meditative type brain all the time. And I know that because you struggled for a few years to meditate, and then now it's like always easy, because you trained your brain to get there, and then, of course, except when it gets hard after it's been easy for a long time, and then that happens. But you know what I mean? There are these permanent changes happening. But what I wanted to say, which I banned in all my notes, what I wanted to say is, do that more. Do that more. Before you hear that as you will feel resistance. Part of it is left brain doesn't want you to. And I know you've heard that, but the biology is there. It's true. It would really like to still be running the show. It really, really wants to tell you some details about something. Just anything. Them. If you could take them apart. Or you can know a lot about this thing. So now, like, when you talk, you'll know a lot. I really like the Grateful Dead, I love them so much. There's certain kinds of deadheads I like to be around, and there's some I don't. The ones I like are the ones like, man, freak, dude, this is so freaking great. I don't know what the hell just happened, but whoa. That is, it's blowing me away. I mean, just like that, it's just ridiculous. I don't know what to say. I like those guys. The people I don't want to be around are the ones who go, this reminds me of the 1939 show. And they start rutting off all this stuff about what the dates are. And I know, it's like, dude, the fuck are you talking about? Are you serious? I get a little, that's okay, but what are you doing? You were just seriously listening to that going, yeah, this reminds me a lot of this other guy. It reminds me of this book I read, Black Elk. He said, when white people go to the forest, they go to the ugliest, not the ugliest, the places with the least power. He said, if you don't want to see any people, go to places filled with power. You'll find no people there. They'll be on a peak somewhere, showing off like, I went to the top, and I can take pictures of myself, and look, I'm at the top. That I went to the peak, I'm at the top. And everyone who seeks power is like, it's in that hidden thing you passed. There's that, remember that shadowy little ravine you looked down and there were some mushrooms growing and it just looked a little like fairyland? That's where you go and sit. There's where you go. You go there. If you got to go to the top, go. But now you've done nothing. You've got a story, but not something. So it's like that. It's like that, and it's like that. The whole world is doing it. You almost can just expect, no matter what group you join. I was very disappointed going to Grateful Dead shows. I thought all the hippies would be right brain dominant. They weren't. I was so shocked. This guy was super grumpy, and I'm like, grumpy? That's just like my dad. I'm trying to get away from that to a new culture. This isn't it. This is not the culture I want to be in. I thought it would be different. Okay, so, all right. So what I'm really trying to say, mostly, is do that more. And your left brain, if you're in it right now, is going to say, that I don't want to. But that's an addiction to misery. Or an addiction to your identity of being whatever it is you are being that is fake. And we just got to give it up, man. You could wait your whole life and not make it to sainthood if you're just going to keep on clinging to being the professional or the athlete or whatever you're doing, just stop it. For God's sake, just stop it. Give it up. And give up your state of mind. When Jesus says, be passers-by, it's another one of the core, you hear that and you say, oh, you just know it's loaded with depth. Be passers-by. But don't think of just your friend group or something. Be a passerby for the entire way you think. Be a passerby. The whole way you think you are, burn it. You should detest it. It's the reason someone died of cancer and you didn't cure them. You should detest it. I detest it. I try to not even hook to it. I try to always be rejecting it because I know the new better that I am than last year. Even I was sick for 7 days. It was very fruitful. I'm different than I was on the pre-side of being sick. It changed me. It was terrible and miserable, and there was no heroic moments. I'm a total baby. Don't think I had visions. And what happened to Clint? I just sat in misery, and it sucked horribly. And when I came out the other side, there were some things that were no longer in my consciousness. Be passers-by. And don't build a spiritual ego for where you're at, because like wherever I am, yippee. Where I am is the enemy to where we're going. Where I am is the enemy to where we're going. We have to let it go. So stop having pride in whatever it is, man. Stop. Hate it. Jesus said if you don't hate your life, you're not worthy of the kingdom. And when I was a New Ager, I thought that's another thing they changed. That's another place where they put stuff in to control people. No, man. Hate it. Hate the way you are. So then if I say, do it more, just all the time be meditating now, all the time be, and if you in here feel resistance, you're either confusing the rest I'm inviting you into for work, or you're up against addiction. Something you're addicted to that you want to keep doing that you won't do. Something that makes you unhappy, but you think it's giving you what you want. If you come from suffering like me, I know some people in here had terrible upbringings like I did. Some of us, we find things that hurt us, but they hurt way less than what we're coming from. So we develop impulsive, compulsive, and addictive behaviors. And they're way better than the suffering that happens if we just soften up. So we develop these, addictive, compulsive behaviors, which are a form of suffering, but they're louder than the noise in the room that we're scared of. And so we think we love those things. We think we love them. We think they're our friends because they did maybe save us from committing suicide. But see, then at some point, you gotta let that go. It would be better to feel the suffering temporarily as it heals, that was heaped upon us in our upbringings. It would be better to feel all that than to spend our whole lives in compulsive behaviors trying to avoid feeling it. And that applies to most people, even if you weren't raised poorly. So I'll do better once I understand this book well. I'll have to read it a couple times, but it'll just boil down to some 4 things I needed to learn, because that's all it ever is. Right brain is the only part of the brain that can learn something new. So someone said, he said, Clinton, I want to understand the Bible the way you do. How do I do that? He texted me. And I thought it was so funny. Because some of you know, when I decided I was going to be Christian, I said, okay, I'm Christian now. Because Jesus said to be Christian. So, okay, I'm Christian now. So, and it took me 10 years to have one opinion about the path. I just read it and absorbed it with the right brain. I didn't form ideas. I read it and absorbed it, read it and absorbed it. And in about 10 years, one day, overnight, I had all this understanding. Because it's working on it the whole time. And it also had to match experience. It had to match experience. It can't be words on a page, right? Because it's realities. So what I hope I texted him back. I probably didn't. What I said, if I said it, is just like give it 10 years and don't try at all. Because everyone I know that's got all these opinions about it, they don't know what they're talking about. If they formed their opinions of the whole Christian path in stage 2 of 7 stages, then the opinions are garbage. They're just garbage, man. That's why the world's filled with vapid, toxic Christianity. So you got people that aren't even in stage 2 yet teaching. It's a problem, man. Okay, so then what if you entered life more in a meditative state more often? What if you just stayed there a lot more? I was just going to give you like little tricks. Me and Daniel happened to be talking about it one day, but like if I'm driving, there's a million ways to do it, but I like to not get in wrecks. So I'll focus on the cars. But, like so beautiful red car will pull up. So that's it, man, freaking red. Just red, just soak up red, man. Be with red. See, now it's just color. It's just a color game. So now every car brings beauty. Every car, lectio visio. Now I can see the beauty of the color and appreciate and enjoy that. That's it. That's it. So it's divine, right? In the spirit, seeing. Audio. In the spirit, hearing. Listening. I'm going to be gone Friday, Saturday, Sunday. No, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I'll be back Tuesday. No phone, in the desert, fasting. So I'm doing 3 days. Do you know the main thing I'm looking forward to of all of it? Lectio audio. The desert sounds, man. Just get in those juniper trees and sit up and meditate for a couple hours and go into sound. Deep enough in meditation, you forget you're a person. There's just sound. It's one of my most favorite experiences on earth. Just absorbing all the sound at once. It's incredible. That's all you need. That's all you need. Color, sound, touch, scent. That's all you need, man. It's all we need. It's all around us all the time, and we're trying to improve on our lives. I don't know what it means or what that's supposed to be, but it's not improving on things. It's making everything worse. So then this book says, but when you do things well enough, like music, it's right-brained at first, but they said it eventually lands in the left brain once you know it well enough that the left brain can sort of like know all the parts. And so I thought, well, that's why so much music is terrible, because the freaking left brain just making it out of parts. It sucks so bad. It sounds like it's all right, but it's also like a robot wrote it. You might as well let AI start writing it. For 80% of the musicians out there should just let AI do it, because it's not going to be any different, because their left brain's doing it and it's dead. So I thought, how do you avoid that? Like, how do you avoid that? And I thought about the Grateful Dead. You guys know I love the Grateful Dead. I think they're the best, worst band on earth. That's what I think. But, they avoided this trap of it becoming left-brained. They did it, and they made a career out of avoiding it. Because they were students of philosophy and students of theology. And they understood that if they ever got where it was left brain happening, doing it all, that it would be dead and not be alive. And so they decided to never play the song the same way twice. They decided to only play and not rehearse. Okay, so just play, just get as good as they could at playing, and to do it different every time, and let there be a lot of improvisation so the right brain could be dominant the whole time it was being played. And, you've heard them. sometimes you sacrifice a little precision when you do that. I understand. Some of you haven't gotten them yet, and I get it. But what you gain is beginner's mind. You get to play the rest of your career in beginner's mind. And that has another neat effect, which is it puts your audience in beginner's mind. And if they're left dominant-brained people, they will hate it. And that's why there's so many people who hate it so bad. It makes them viscerally angry, I've noticed. And what it is it's their left brain feeling threatened by something completely outside of its purview of control. Just completely outside. It's the same reason if you've ever been hated, I've been hated at times. I think everything's going well socially, and then I just open up one level too far, and they're mad, and they hate you, and it's like, freak, dude, I have to go home and think about why that just happened. Like, why did they get mad? Okay, I did share that thing that is so outside of the normal paradigm that it made them feel like they weren't masters of the universe. And it wasn't us just knowing everything now. Now it was something they'd never understood or thought of, and they're mad. Well, that's the reaction people had with Jesus. And that's the reaction they have with the Grateful Dead, because they're coming from this whole other thing. And then I wanted to say something else about this. You know, so we're just talking right, left brain. This dude, I'm sure, is a mystic, although I can't prove it yet because I haven't vetted him. But I already know what I'm going to find if I look him up. He's going to be into meditation. He's going to have a spiritual path. I already know that, just from what I've already read. He's just going to have that. But so right now we're just talking about right, left brain. But there's this other thing. There's mystical experience, and then there's prophecy. There's that. There's revelation, there's mystical experience, and there's prophecy. And so, like, the dead did suck sometimes, because you can't always sort of get 5 or 6 dudes to be sharp enough and on fire enough to do that experiment and have it pull off well. So, you know, it could be bad. It could be a bad day. Maybe they had a really good run for 3 or 4 days, then now they ran out of chemicals and they couldn't do it. So, you know, it was hit and miss. But they had another goal on top of this thing of staying totally right brain focused, totally unknowing, cloud of unknowing. They were masters of the cloud of unknowing. They were doing it. They were doing mysticism. On purpose, too. They knew they were, and they knew they were drawing their audience into it, and that they were creating a vehicle for people to transcend themselves. That's their whole thing, and it worked, which is so neat. But they were doing something else too, which is a little bit of prophecy. Because so far we're just talking about brain mechanics, but there was also the times when God would just come through them and play the band. And that got more and more frequent as they got better at it. Isn't that what you're supposed to be doing? It isn't being whatever you're being just the murderous villain of that story. Killing it. Whatever you're being, Mr. Professional, Mr. Whatever, I don't know, just whatever. I have the dumbest ones, but we all have them, and they're all ridiculous and stupid. And you can see how it just kills everything. And what does it stop? Well, it stops revelation. It stops God's power from flowing straight through you into the world. That's what it stops. Because that's your role. They did that too. And they weren't like advanced mystics in the sense that their whole lives reflected it. They were more like Pentecostals or shaman. And maybe your life is trash, but you can get up on stage and pull it off and really do it. That's more like what they were. They weren't saints, or mystic masters. But so I don't follow them in that way. I don't want anything to do with their lives that way. But But they did the Pentecostal or the shamanic approach. They did the, speaking in tongues approach at whatever the freak that thing's called when the tongues of fire came down on the disciples, man. And they started speaking in tongues. They did that. And all you got to give up is what? I'm professional. I'm intelligent. I'm resilient. Like, what are you carrying around that's worth more than that to you? And whose approval is worth more than life itself to you? I bet when I told you to just really do Lectio Divina today, if you did it, you felt softer. I bet your brain felt more relaxed. I bet it felt more diffuse and less focused in on one thing. My legs always get warm. One of my markers is just the back of my calves feel yummy when I'm there, so I just they feel yummy, so then I just notice how yummy my calves feel. And that's enough to keep me there, pretty much. This feels good, so I'm a sucker for good sensations, so if it feels good, I'm in, so. But you know what it's like when you soften and you go there. At some point you have to say, why do I go back? Why? What for? Could I say one more little set of things in support of it? I said something that wasn't true recently, and I didn't know it wasn't true. I did find some, St. Francis of Assisi is kind of one of our best nature mystics, thank God for him, or we'd really, really ruin nature as Christians in this world. But, he had that just profound connection to nature, and I said most of the Franciscans don't have it, and that's true. But I did find on the net some sort of teachings around it, and it's just beautiful, you guys. You got to think of this. So there's asceticism, right? The world is the distraction, so just turn your face from the world and go within, which is deep meditation and a big part of the path. But there's also every bird is the word of God. Every bird. Every leaf. Every tree. It is the word of God. Every sunset, whatever your trip is, man, it is the word of God. And because it's the word of God, it's mysterious, and you don't get to define it and say this tree means this and that tree means that. but you can open yourself to experience tree. Bird. So then it's like, turn your face from the world or turn directly to the world. Both. When you close your eyes, you'll turn your face from the world. When you open them, look at the world. It's a color. It's just endless joy and beauty.